My name is Holly Bennett. They stopped me at the Thanksgiving entrance and laughed when I asked why. But before I tell you how everything flipped and how I finally found my own peace, do me a favor. Like and subscribe and drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. My name is Holly Bennett. I'm 32 years old, and my life is a series of lists and alarms. I live in a small, one-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon. The rent is too high, but the view of my neighbor's brick wall is free. I work 2 jobs to keep my head above water. From Monday to Friday, I'm a 3rd-grade teacher. I spend my days with the smell of crayons and disinfectant, helping kids sound out words and learn their multiplication tables. It's a job I love, a job that feels important, but it doesn't pay the bills. So on nights and weekends, I'm a cashier at a brightly lit supermarket. I stand for hours, scanning groceries and offering tired smiles to strangers. Did you find everything you were looking for? I ask over and over, while my feet ache and my mind drifts to the pile of papers I still need to grade. My family knows all of this. They know I'm struggling. They hear it in my voice when I have to decline a last-minute dinner because I have a shift. They see it in the old, reliable car I drive. They're not struggling. My parents live in a big, beautiful suburban home, the one I grew up in. It has a sprawling green lawn, a 2-car garage, and a kitchen that's bigger than my entire living room. My sister, Lauren, is married to a man who does well for himself. They have a new SUV and take vacations I only see on social media. This Thanksgiving was supposed to be my break. It was my one day off from both jobs, all month. I imagined it for weeks. The warmth of the house hitting me when I walked in. The rich smell of turkey and my mom's stuffing. The familiar, loud chatter of my aunts, uncles, and cousins. I imagined sinking into the soft sofa, a plate piled high with food on my lap, and just breathing. For one day, I wouldn't have to think about bills or lesson plans or the leaky faucet in my bathroom. It was supposed to be my escape, or so I thought. Thanksgiving was always the one day a year that felt like a truce. It didn't matter who was annoyed with whom, or what arguments had happened over the summer. The holiday was a clean slate. You showed up, you brought a dish, and you were family. It was the one rule that was never broken. That morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. I didn't set an alarm. I put on some music and spent 2 hours making my pumpkin pie. Not from a can, but from a real pumpkin I'd roasted and pureed myself. I made the crust from scratch, using my grandmother's recipe. It was the one thing I could contribute that felt special, a piece of me. As I fluted the edges of the crust with my thumb, I pictured my dad sneaking a slice before dinner, just like he always did. I picture my mom telling me it was the best one yet. I put on my nicest sweater, the one without the small stain on the sleeve. I did my hair. I wanted to look like I was doing okay. I wanted them to be proud. I carefully placed the pie, still warm, into a carrier and drove the 45 minutes from my cramped city life to the spacious comfort of my childhood. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw it was already full. My uncle's truck was there and my cousin's minivan. Laughter and music drifted out from the house, faint but happy. I felt a smile spread across my face. I was home. I grabbed my pie and walked up the familiar stone path to the big oak front door. Thanksgiving was always the one time I thought family could set aside grudges. But that year, when I walked up to my parents' front door holding my homemade pumpkin pie, my brother's wife, Sarah, physically blocked me. She opened the door just a crack, her body filling the space. She wasn't smiling. Behind her, through the gap, I could see the warm glow of the living room, the flicker of the fireplace. I heard my Uncle Frank telling a loud joke, followed by a wave of laughter. Sarah looked me up and down, her eyes landing on the pie carrier in my hands. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her voice was flat, cold. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "Funny, Sarah. I've got the pie." I tried to step forward, to move past her into the warmth and the noise, but she didn't move. She held her ground, one hand on the door, the other on the frame. Her expression didn't change. "You didn't get the invite?" she smirked. The smile fell from my face. My hand, holding the pie, suddenly felt heavy. Invite? What are you talking about? It's Thanksgiving. Behind her, the laughter inside the house swelled again. It sounded impossibly far away, like it was coming from another world. A world I wasn't a part of. My heart started beating a little faster. Sarah, what's going on? Let me in, it's cold out here. I don't think that's a good idea, she said, her smirk widening just a little. It was a look of satisfaction, of power. That's when the first real sting of betrayal hit me. It wasn't just a joke. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. My mind raced back to the text I'd sent my mom just 3 days earlier. I have all my messages saved. I still look at it sometimes. Me, hey mom, just confirming for Thursday. Is dinner still at 5? And should I bring my pumpkin pie? Her reply came 2 hours later. It was short, but it was all I needed. Mom, sure, 5 p.m. She hadn't mentioned the pie, but that wasn't unusual. She was a woman of few words over text. Sure, 5 p.m. It was a confirmation, an invitation. I had proof. I had a digital receipt that said I was supposed to be here. I held up my phone to Sarah, my hand shaking slightly. Look, I texted Mom. She said to come at 5. Sarah glanced at the screen and shrugged, unimpressed. Things change. From inside, I heard my sister's voice. Who is it, Sarah? Sarah turned her head slightly. It's Holly. There was a pause. The happy chatter inside seemed to dip for a second. Then, my sister, Lauren, appeared behind Sarah. She was wearing a new dress, her hair was perfect, and she had the same smirk on her face as her sister-in-law. They looked like a team. We decided this year is family only, Lauren said, leaning against the doorframe. She said it casually, as if she were telling me they'd run out of milk. My breath caught in my throat. I looked past her, through the doorway. I saw my cousin Mark, his wife, and their 2 kids sitting on the floor by the fireplace. I saw my Aunt Carol arranging glasses on the dining table. I saw my dad in his favorite armchair, laughing with my uncle. 20 relatives. All of them family. And here I was, on the other side of the door. What? The word came out as a whisper. What do you mean, family only? I am family. Lauren just stared at me. Her eyes were cold. There was no flicker of sympathy, no hint of regret. This was deliberate. This was a message. I looked desperately for my parents. I saw my mom in the kitchen, her back to me, stirring something on the stove. She had to know I was here. She had to have heard my voice. But she didn't turn around. She just kept stirring. Then my dad's eyes met mine for a brief second. He was only 20 feet away. He saw the confusion and the hurt on my face. He saw his daughter standing on his own front porch in the cold. He looked away. He cleared his throat and muttered something to the floor, just loud enough for me to hear. Not a good year for you to be here, Holly. Not a good year. The words echoed in my head. What did that even mean? A year is made of days of moments. What had I done? My mind was a frantic blur, searching for a reason, an explanation. Had I said something? Done something? I came up with nothing. Then, Lauren's husband, a man named Greg who always looked pleased with himself, walked up behind her and put his arm around her waist. He chuckled a low, smug sound. You know, he said, looking at me with pity, after everything you've done. Everything I've done. There it was again. This vague, huge accusation. It felt like being sentenced for a crime I didn't even know I was on trial for. My mouth opened, but no words came out. I looked from face to face. Sarah's smugness. Lauren's cold indifference. Greg's condescending smile. My father's shame. My mother's back. They were a wall. A united front against me. What? I finally managed to ask, my voice cracking. What did I do? Someone please just tell me what I did. No one answered. They just stood there, watching me fall apart on my own parents' porch. The humiliation felt like a physical weight. My cheeks were on fire. My chest was tight. I felt small, like a child being scolded in front of a crowd. And then it got worse. A real crowd appeared. My parents' neighbors, the Hendersons, were out for a walk. They were an older couple who had known me since I was a little girl. They saw me standing on the porch, holding a pie, being blocked at the door by my own family. They slowed down, their friendly waves turning into confused, curious stares. "Happy Thanksgiving, Holly," Mrs. Henderson called out, her voice full of holiday cheer. I couldn't answer. I just stood there, frozen. She looked at the scene, at the half-open door, at the cold faces staring back at me. She leaned in and whispered to her husband, but I heard it clearly. "Aren't they your family?" That one simple question broke me. Yes, they are. They are the people who are supposed to love me, to protect me. And they were treating me like a stranger, a criminal. I couldn't stand there a second longer. I couldn't look at the Hendersons' pitying faces. I couldn't look at my family's triumphant ones. With as much dignity as I could find, I bent down and placed the pumpkin pie on the welcome mat. My grandmother's recipe, my offering of peace. It looked pathetic sitting there. As I turned to walk away, my feet feeling like lead, I heard my sister's voice, sharp and clear, cut through the cold air. "See? Drama queen as usual." I didn't look back. I walked down the stone path, my vision blurring with tears. I got into my old, reliable car and I drove away, leaving the warmth and the laughter and my family behind me. The 45-minute drive back to my empty apartment felt like an eternity. I didn't cry. I just felt numb. The silence in the car was a roaring in my ears. I replayed every second at the door. Every word. Every look. Over and over again. After everything you've done. What had I done? What could possibly be worth that? For 2 full days, I lived in that question. I called my mom's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I texted my dad. No reply. I was completely cut off, left alone with the shame and confusion. I sat in my small apartment, the silence pressing in on me. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just kept seeing their faces at the door. Then, on Saturday night, my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize at first. It was my cousin Jenna. She was younger than me, Lauren's age, but she'd always been kinder, quieter. "Holly," she whispered, her voice sounding nervous. "Are you alone? Can you talk?" "Jenna?" "Yes, I'm alone." "What's going on?" "I shouldn't be calling," she said, her words rushed. "Lauren would kill me. Everyone would. But what they did to you was wrong. It was so wrong." Hearing someone from inside that house, from that world, say those words felt like a lifeline. The numbness in my chest cracked, and for the first time, I felt a surge of hot, angry tears. "Why, Jenna?" I choked out. "Please just tell me why." They kept saying, "After everything you've done." What did I do? There was a pause on the line. I heard her take a deep breath. "It's so stupid, Holly. It's all about Lauren." Of course it was. It was always about Lauren. She was the brilliant, successful one. I was the quiet, struggling one. Our parents had always treated us differently. Lauren got praise. I got quiet encouragement. Lauren got help with a down payment on her house. I got a lecture on budgeting. What about her? I asked. "She told everyone you were trying to tear the family apart," Jenna whispered. "She said you were bitter and jealous of her and Greg, and that you were spreading lies about them." "Lies? What lies?" "I barely even talked to them." "I know," Jenna said quickly. "But that's the story she sold. And she needed a reason. The real reason is money." And then it all came out. Jenna told me that Lauren had pitched this idea of a family unity Thanksgiving. She'd convinced my parents that the family was drifting apart and that the source of all the tension was me. She said I was a negative influence, always stressed about money, always making them feel guilty for their success. She proposed a Thanksgiving where they would circle the wagons, shut out the problem, and reconnect as a core family. And my parents, who always catered to Lauren's whims, agreed. "But why?" I asked again, my voice shaking with a rage I hadn't felt before. "Why would she do that?" "Because you refused to give her that money," Jenna said softly. And suddenly, the fog of confusion lifted. Everything clicked into place. About 4 months earlier, Lauren had called me. It was a Tuesday night. I had just gotten home from my cashier job, my feet were throbbing, and I was eating leftover pasta standing over the sink. "Holly, honey," she'd said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I have the most amazing opportunity, and I thought of you." She told me she and Greg wanted to make a business investment. It was time-sensitive and required a significant amount of capital upfront. She said it was a sure thing, a tech startup her friend was launching. She painted a picture of huge returns, of financial freedom. Then she got to the point. She needed $15,000. She said they were a little short and the bank was being slow. She asked if I could lend it to them, just for a few months. I almost laughed. $15,000. That was more money than I had in the entire world. It was almost a full year's salary for my teaching job. "Lauren, I can't," I said, my voice tired. "You know my situation. I have student loans. I have credit card debt from when my car broke down. I work 2 jobs, and I barely break even. I don't have $15,000. Her sweet tone vanished instantly. "Don't be so dramatic, Holly. I'm not asking you to give it to me. It's a loan. A family loan. This is what families do for each other. We help each other succeed." "I literally do not have it," I repeated, feeling my stress levels rise. "My savings account has less than $1,000 in it. I can't help you." "So you won't help me?" she'd snapped, her voice turning to ice. "I see. You're happy to see me stuck while you play the poor, struggling teacher. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous." She'd hung up on me before I could even respond. I hadn't heard from her since, until she showed up at the door on Thanksgiving. Jenna's voice brought me back to the present. "She told Mom and Dad that you had the money, that you just refused out of spite," Jenna explained. "She said it proved you didn't care about the family." "And, Holly, the business investment? It wasn't a tech startup." "What was it?" I asked, dreading the answer. "It was a 2-week, all-inclusive luxury spa trip to Bali. Greg posted pictures of it on his private Instagram. That's where their money went. They wanted you to pay for their vacation." The phone felt slick in my hand. So this was it. This was the everything I've done. I had refused to finance my sister's luxury vacation. And for that, I was banished. I was shamed on my parents' front porch. I was branded a traitor. After I hung up with Jenna, I didn't cry. The hurt was still there, a deep, cold ache in my chest. But now it had something new next to it. A cold, hard anger. It was a quiet, focused feeling. They had made me the villain of a story I didn't even know was being written. They thought they could throw me away and I would just disappear, broken. They were wrong. Instead of exploding, I started a new list. Not for groceries or for lesson plans. This was a different kind of list. It was a list of truths. I turned on my laptop. The quiet hum of the machine was the only sound in my apartment. I started gathering proof. I scrolled back through months of text messages. I found the conversation with Lauren about the loan. Her sweet opening. My polite refusal. Her angry, accusatory response. I took a screenshot. I logged into my online banking. I went back 3 years, to the time my dad's car needed a major repair. He'd been short on cash. I wasn't doing great then either, but I had a little saved up. I had loaned him $2,000. "I'll pay you back as soon as I can, Holly girl," he had said. He never did. I never asked for it back. I found the record of the transfer. I took a screenshot. I went back 5 years. Lauren had just started a new job and needed a professional wardrobe. She'd borrowed my credit card, promising to pay me back at the end of the month. She spent over $800. She paid back about $200 of it before she stopped mentioning it. I was still paying off the interest on that debt. I found the old statement. Screenshot. The final piece was the hardest to find. I dug through my old email account, searching for a needle in a digital haystack. I remembered an email from years ago, after a stupid high school fight. Lauren had lied to her mom about something I'd said, and I had been grounded for a week. A few days later, after she got what she wanted, she sent me a quick, careless email. I had forgotten all about it until now. I finally found it, buried in an archive folder from 2008. The subject line was, "Sorry, not sorry." The email was short. Hey, sorry mom got so mad. But you know how she is. You have to tell her what she wants to hear to keep her loyalty. She'll forget about it in a week. Don't be such a baby about it. XOL. To keep her loyalty. The words jumped off the screen. This wasn't new. This was a pattern. A strategy she'd been using for over a decade. This whole Thanksgiving disaster wasn't just a moment of cruelty. It was a calculated move from a playbook she had perfected over years. I saved the email as a PDF. I put all the files into a single folder on my desktop. The text messages, the bank statements, the credit card bill, the old email. I titled the folder, The Truth. For 2 weeks, I did nothing. I went to work. I graded papers. I scanned groceries. I lived my life. The anger didn't scream. It simmered. It was patient. I was building my case, not for a jury, but for myself. And for them. 2 weeks before Christmas, the holiday cards started arriving in the mail. Cheerful families smiling in matching sweaters. I knew my family would be planning their big Christmas Eve party. I knew I wouldn't be invited. They expected me to be silent. They expected me to accept my role as the outcast. That night, I sat down at my computer and opened a new email. I typed in my mother's email address, then my father's. Then I went through my contacts and added every single aunt, uncle, and older cousin. The whole family. Lauren,
Greg, Sarah,
Uncle Frank, Aunt Carol. Everyone who had been in that warm, laughing house while I stood in the cold. I didn't write a long, angry letter. I didn't make accusations. I didn't use a single exclamation point. My words were calm, simple, and direct. Subject: thinking of you all this holiday season, body. Dear family, I know there has been a lot of confusion and hurt recently, especially regarding what happened on Thanksgiving. I was told that I was excluded because of everything I have done. I have been thinking about that a lot. For my own peace of mind, I gathered a few documents to clarify some past events. I thought you all deserved to see them before. You judge me again. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. Sincerely, Holly. Then, I clicked the paperclip icon. I attached the screenshots of the texts with Lauren. I attached the bank records of the unpaid loans to my dad and sister. I attached the old email from Lauren about keeping mom's loyalty. I attached everything. My finger hovered over the send button for a full minute. My heart was pounding. This was it. There was no going back. This would either burn the final bridge to ashes, or it would shine a light so bright they could no longer hide in the shadows. I clicked send. The email vanished into the digital world. And then there was silence. The rest of that evening, my phone stayed quiet. The next day, the same. It was a deafening silence. I didn't know if anyone had opened it, or if they had all just deleted it. I started to feel a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. Had I made a terrible mistake? Then, on the third day, I got a text. It was from Jenna. OMG. The bomb has gone off. No one is talking about anything else. My hands shook as I typed back. What's happening? Jenna replied instantly. Aunt Carol is furious with Lauren. Uncle Frank called your dad and yelled at him for an hour. Mom said your mother won't come out of her room. It was working. The truth was working. By New Year's, the fallout was clear. I saw pictures from the family Christmas Eve party, posted by a distant cousin. Lauren and her husband Greg were mysteriously absent. No one mentioned their names in the comments. It was as if they had been erased. A week into January, my phone rang. It was my mother. I hadn't heard her voice since before Thanksgiving. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. My heart a steady, slow drum. Holly. Her voice was small, tentative. Hi, Mom, I said, keeping my own voice even and calm. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Your father and we were wondering if you might be free to catch up sometime this week. Maybe get a coffee. This was it. The apology tour. I knew if I went to their house, it would be on their terms. It would be emotional. They could make a scene. They could control the narrative. I can do that, I said. There's a coffee shop near my apartment. How about Wednesday afternoon? I chose the place. a public place, where no scene could be made, where they would have to be civil. For the first time in my life, I was setting the terms. When I walked into the coffee shop, they were already there, sitting at a small table in the corner. They looked older, tired. My dad was staring into his cup. My mom was twisting her napkin into shreds. They both stood up when they saw me. It was awkward, clumsy. We didn't hug. We sat down, and for a full minute, no one spoke. The barista called out an order. Music played softly overhead. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. "Holly," he started, his voice thick with emotion. We saw your email." I just nodded, waiting. "We are so sorry," my mother whispered, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "We listened to Lauren. We always listen to Lauren. We didn't even think to ask you. We failed you. As parents, we failed you." My dad reached across the table, but he stopped short of taking my hand. "What we did on Thanksgiving was unforgivable. There's no excuse. We were weak, and we were cruel, and we are so ashamed." They stumbled over their apologies. They told me how Lauren had manipulated them, how she had cried, and told them she felt so attacked by me. They admitted they knew about the unpaid loans, but had found it easier to forget. They said they had been blinded by their desire to see one of their children as successful and uncomplicated. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't yell. I didn't tell them how many nights I'd lain awake, their words echoing in my head. I didn't tell them how the image of them at the door was burned into my memory. When they were finished, a quiet settled over the table. They looked at me, their eyes pleading. They were waiting for me to absolve them, to say, "It's okay," and make everything go back to the way it was. "I accept your apology," I said, and I saw the relief flood their faces. But I wasn't done. "I accept it. But I want you to understand something. Trust is not like a light switch you can just flip back on. What you did broke it. It might be broken forever. I don't know yet." I looked at them both, my voice steady and clear. "I will always be your daughter. But I don't know if we can ever be family in the same way again. That is something you are going to have to live with." I stood up, picked up my purse, and left them sitting there in the coffee shop. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't even feel that sad. I just felt quiet. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt powerful. I hadn't screamed or cried or made a scene. I had simply held up the truth and let it speak for itself. If you've ever been shut out by the very people who should have protected you, you'll understand this story. You'll know what it feels like to be the villain in someone else's narrative. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't screaming, it's calmly showing the truth. It's taking back your own story. If this story resonates with you, please like, subscribe, and share your own experience in the comments. It's important for us to know we're not alone.